Yes, sir. Welcome back. You are live with All Eyes on Cleveland. Here to discuss your 9-3 Cleveland Browns heading into Monday Night Football against the Baltimore Ravens. First time they have met up since week 1. We have a tremendous guest with us here as always, as this is the show where we provide you with interviews with the top personalities in the nation discussing the pressing issues that face your Cleveland Browns. All Eyes on Cleveland is a podcast available where all popular podcasts are found, and the simulcast is going out to Facebook Live, Periscope, and YouTube. Welcome in for another edition of the show. A huge game looming on Monday Night Football. I could not be more excited to talk about it. We have another fantastic guest for you tonight, and we're going to go ahead and bring him in. His name is Kyle Andrews. He writes and works for the Baltimore Sun and on the Mobtown Blitz podcast. Welcome to the show, Kyle. How are we doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. I'm pretty excited to watch this game. It's going to be a pretty interesting one, I think.
It certainly will. I know we are fired up as a community here in Cleveland. Certainly, it's been a long time coming for us at 9-3. So it should be a fantastic game. I've got a lot of questions for you here tonight, Let's start off here, and thank you again for coming on tonight, Kyle, on All Eyes on Cleveland. Let's start off here with Week 1, a matchup that certainly as Browns fans we don't want to revisit so much, as it was a 38-6 pounding as the Browns got off the bus. To me, these teams are certainly different than they were Week 1. Different football teams at this point. For you, what has changed about the Ravens since Week 1?
Injuries. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things. I mean, we always know in football it's always a possibility of injuries happening, and I think the Ravens have been bitten by that injury bug in terms of, their offensive line. And then also we have to remember that this, losing Nick Boyle, I think a lot of other people around the league don't necessarily think of it being a big loss to lose your backup tight end. But the Ravens use a lot of 22 personnel. And because of that, now you lose that other guy that was supposed to be there, blocking for that running game that the Ravens have with Lamar Jackson, with, some of the other guys in the backfield, Mark Ingram. I'm pretty sure you guys know this guy pretty well because he's an Ohio State guy, but J.K. Dobbins, and also Gus Edwards too. And we could see now that the Ravens offensive line is starting to kind of gel as time has gone on after the injuries. Orlando Brown Jr. has filled in valiantly for Ronnie Stanley in his absence with that broken ankle. And then you also have, you lost. You also lose a lot of, and you had lost a lot with Tyree Phillips being out, but now Tyree Phillips is back. I think that helps out quite a bit. You also have the replacement at center too, with Patrick McCary starting in place of Matt Skura, who had those awful snaps on Monday Night Football back against the Patriots. So I mean, I think this offensive line has become a lot more glued together. I know they had a lot of issues with COVID over the past couple of weeks.
Certainly a lot of them, yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Steelers fans are pretty upset about that, but I didn't get the anger because they were playing against the Ravens JV team at that point, so we kind of knew it was going to be a win for the Steelers anyway. So I didn't understand the anger, but I think this Ravens team and both the Browns too. I mean, we have to give the Browns credit. I think they're a way different team than the team that the Ravens faced at the beginning of the season. And they've been outstanding. They beat a team that the Ravens have had trouble with in the Titans. And, their offense looked outstanding. So it's a bunch of concerns that I think the Ravens should have going into this game. I think, but they're also gelling. I think at the right time. That Cowboys win certainly wasn't there. I don't think it was even close to being their best game that they could play, and I think that's also maybe that's a knock on the way that the offense kind of ran, despite putting up the amount of points that they did. So. It certainly reminds me of earlier on in the season when the Ravens offense clicked to an extent, but still left some points on the board.
Yeah. So, they came out and they did what they had to do against the Cowboys. Cowboys aren't very good. Just watch them. It's almost a shame. I feel like some of those guys have given up over there. Let's talk a little bit about Lamar Jackson's play. So in week 1, he came out. We didn't know what to expect. We knew what to expect to some extent, but he threw the ball all over the Browns in week 1, and he was accurate, and it was like, oh, damn, like this dude, what has he been doing all offseason? He's been throwing the ball. He just, MVP got himself better throwing the ball. He looked accurate. He, carved up the Browns defense. However, as the season has gone along, he's kind of regressed back to the mean as far as throwing the ball goes. Even against the Cowboys, he had an efficient night. But you see him throw some of those passes like where Boykin's wide open in the end zone and he throws it at his feet in the ground, right? He had a couple of those. And he struggles to throw the ball outside the numbers somewhat. So where are you at with Lamar's game at this point? Has he struggled? I mean, we saw Marquise Brown kind of, get disgruntled a little bit with the pass game. I guess he was saying some things about, not being used properly or getting the long ball or whatever as much as they would like to. Now, of course, we know the Ravens revolve around the run. That's what they do. And certainly he looked good running the ball last night, Lamar did. What do you think about Lamar's throwing the ball and just his game in general? How has he progressed as the season has come along?
All right, so I think the Ravens, it's a two-pronged thing. I think that, Lamar has gotten inconsistent at times. And I think that's a lot. We can talk about COVID all we want, but I think that some guys, they've got it down pat, and then other guys don't have it down pat. And I also think that has to do with a lot with the receivers and the kind of passing game that, the Greg Roman offense kind of entails. Greg Roman, we have to remember that his first year coaching Colin Kaepernick had, that really strong season. His the first year that he took over the starting job from Alex Smith, and then that second season was his best season. But then after that, he struggled because the passing offense never kind of developed. It just got extremely stagnant. I think that the Ravens don't run routes to rub their receivers open. That would help out a lot more with crossing routes, and that's something that the Ravens just don't do. And you would think that they would, try to implement that kind of thing when, your best receiver is 5'9" and 180 pounds soaking wet. So I think that causes some issues with, Hollywood Brown not being able to get open by himself because he gets bumped off the line almost immediately. I think any big physical big physical corner that has, you could get a guy that runs a 4.5, and as long as he bumps Hollywood Brown, who runs a 4.25 or something insane like that, if he bumps him, he gets the advantage on Hollywood Brown because he can't get separation either. And you would think somebody with his speed would be able to get separation, but he just doesn't do it. And I think also, receiving core wise, I just don't think this Ravens receiving core is anything to call home about. I think you have Mark Andrews, who I think is one of the top tight ends in the league, but at the same time, who on that out of all the Ravens receivers, who really scares you? And I don't think it's one person.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about the receiving core a little bit here. So Mark Andrews is going to be back, right, Monday night?
Yes.
And Willie Snead will be back. So less of depending on Boykin and Duvernay, right? Some of these guys that aren't really proven receivers in the NFL. So I'm sure Willie Snead will help. How much do you think he impacts the game? Because he kind of diced up the Browns in week 1.
So I think Willie Snead. So although I do say that the Ravens receiving core doesn't have much to call, you don't have a lot to call home about with their receiving core. I think that Willie Snead he's old reliable. He gets the job done when you need him to get the job done. I think that he's been the Ravens' most consistent guy. Because that he'll go across the middle, take those blows, get those catches. And then it stinks also for Dez Bryant because, Dez Bryant, I thought he would have been the second guy that could do that. But, with this weird situation with him, testing negative twice after he tested positive during the game or prior to the game, a lot of people in Baltimore have joked around and said Jerry Jones conspiracy that he he calls the COVID testing positive, and he's been negative ever since. So we don't know what the situation is there.
What's up with Dez? He said he was going to quit last night. Did you hear him say that?
Yeah, I
or whatever
that.
He tweeted out, like he's like, I'm done with this. I quit. Like what's up with Dez, man?
I think he had to have been extremely frustrated, and I think he tweeted out of anger and frustration at the situation. I don't think he's necessarily going to quit because Dez Bryant has been an outstanding influence on some of the Ravens' younger guys. Like I think Miles Boykin, that game against the Cowboys, like that one catch that he had, I know he could have had 2 touchdowns, but it seemed like he has taken a step up because he's like, hey, Dez, he got in my ear telling me, like, this is what I need to do. And I think that, the Ravens have always had a receiver like that. They've had an Anquan Bolden. They've had a Derek Mason. They've had a Steve Smith in the past. And I think Dez Bryant, he might not be to the same level as those guys at this point in his career. But I also think that Dez Bryant is hungry and he wants to play and he wants to be a good influence on these guys because, he's seen how, quickly the game can be taken away from him, especially after, a couple of nights ago. So that to me, I think he's still hungry. He wants to play. And, you just feel for somebody that has been through so much with just his injuries and, things along that nature. And then COVID or, not actually COVID. We don't know what the situation is.
Right.
So hopefully, if he can get out there on Monday night, maybe the Ravens will have a better chance, with him out there, other than, having a bunch of guys and Willie Snead.
He's certainly somebody you got to pay attention to, right? I mean, just in name alone, when he's on the field, he's somebody that you got to guard against. I don't know, what kind of separation he can get at his age or anything like that. I'm not sure. We haven't really seen enough of it yet, right? But an interesting signing certainly, and you would think that receiving core is something that maybe that Ravens would address here probably in the offseason again, certainly. All right, so let me ask you a little bit here about the backs, the running backs here. So we know they've got 3 really good backs, Ingram, Dobbins, Gus Edwards, right? But Ingram is kind of getting phased out, which is really surprising to me. Obviously, Dobbins seems like the most talented, most explosive at this point. Ohio State kid. We're very familiar with him here. Obviously, rooted for him for all the years he was an Ohio State player. But he seems to be taking the majority of the carries. But I'm surprised at the way the Ravens use their backs. It's almost like even last night when watching that game, it's like Dobbins for a play, Edwards for a play, Ingram for a play. That surprises me a little bit just because you kind of think you want like a back to get in a groove a little bit.
Right.
Sometimes it takes a guy some time to get a rhythm and start to see the holes a little bit better. So when they alternate backs like that, I'm kind of curious about that. But why do you think the phasing out of Ingram? Is he just a little long in the tooth at this point? Is Dobbins just better? I know he got some carries last night, but even like a couple weeks ago before they got COVID, he was only getting like a couple carries a game.
Right. And I think it's more or less because Dobbins is that guy. Like Dobbins is the most explosive running back that the Ravens have had since Ray Rice. It's
Okay.
and seeing him wear the number 27, you're like, geez, he looks just like him. But the thing is, he's
Yeah.
way more explosive. One thing that Mark Ingram never really had that, guys like Alvin Kamara had, and now J.K. Dobbins has, is that he has that home run hitting ability.
Yes.
Mark Ingram he's not necessarily the kind of guy that's going to take a screen pass, 50 yards off of a busted play. Whereas J.K. Dobbins, we've seen it multiple times. We've seen it in the NFL. We saw it all throughout college that he was one of the most explosive backs in college, and now I think he's one of the most explosive backs in the NFL too. It's just a question of how do they get him more involved. But I do also think that Gus Edwards has been one of the most consistent
Excellent.
backup running backs in the NFL as well. Gus Edwards, he consistently, beats up on defenses. He can run against the best of them. I mean, last year, I'll never forget this game against the Steelers. Steelers had the fourth-ranked defense in the NFL. Ravens were throwing out their backups because they were like, okay, well, we already clinched the division. Everything's over. Gus Edwards goes out there, runs for 100 yards against the number 4 defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
And he's a backup. So now you got
Yeah.
all these running backs that are just outstanding. Any of them could start on a good chunk of teams. And I think that's a question that you'll have in the offseason is like, do you save money by cutting Mark Ingram, or do you try to trade Mark Ingram for like a couple picks, maybe some later round picks? And then Gus Edwards, do you bring him back or do you let him walk? And I think that they should try to keep Gus Edwards. Mark Ingram,
Yeah.
that's kind of up in the air. But I think they could find somebody to replace him. But if I'm the Ravens, you got to keep Gus Edwards just to, be able to bruise people and beat them into submission.
Yeah. No, that's those are some tough decisions there. What you want to do with them, and you wonder what you could get for Ingram at this point, or how much he has left in the tank. I mean, he's been productive for a long time in the NFL, so that's interesting. Yeah, and I wouldn't want to get rid of Gus Edwards. I'm a big fan of Gus Edwards as well. I think he's a really good back also. So obviously they have the number 1 run game in the NFL. And, so this is kind of with this question, obviously we know they're going to try to run the ball, but what do you expect the Ravens' approach to be against the Browns here? Monday Night Football. Obviously, they're going to try to run the ball. The Browns have been decent against the run. I think they have like 8th in the league in yards per game against the run. They did a good job against Derrick Henry, obviously, in that game in the first half, and kind of took him out of the game. Of course, they had to throw to catch up after that, so that kind of skews his numbers, but he only ran for like 60 yards. I think it was his first game. He didn't hit 100 yards all year. Browns came out, did something different with a little 5-man front against the Tennessee Titans. I wouldn't be surprised to see it again against Baltimore's run game. What do you expect from the Ravens game plan-wise, offensively? We saw them throw it on the Browns a lot in week 1. You expect them to, what do you expect from them as far as their approach to the game? And then along with that, let me ask you this, kind of a 2-part question. Do you think the Ravens take the Browns seriously at 9-3?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you have to respect the Browns, and I think the Ravens absolutely do. I think, like I said in another podcast that I was on, I think that this Ravens Browns game is going to be more akin to like the old Ravens Steelers games, and maybe even the Browns games back in the day too, back in the 80s, where the Browns were this outstanding team that. They played physically. They were a scary team that the Steelers had to play against. And I think that, the Ravens right now, they're fighting for a playoff spot. So you have to respect any team that you play against, let alone you can't just only, you know, get up and play against the teams that are going to be in the playoffs. And you saw that against the Cowboys, that they thrashed the Cowboys when they needed to win that game. I think that, you know, something that I've always seen with the Ravens is that they play up to their competition. They have
Yeah.
a tendency of playing down to their competition, and they didn't do that against the Cowboys. But I think that, you know, a divisional game, you have to get up to that one. I think that they're ready to rock in that game. No pun intended, I know, with Cleveland, but you know,
Yeah.
it's gonna be pretty fun to watch that. I'm pretty excited to, you know, just watch some good football and then also see the Browns be competitive. Like this is good for the division. You know, I think a lot of people, you know, that's why I was so confused as to why Steelers fans were excited to see guys out. You know, like to me, I'm like, if you're a huge AFC North fan, you want to see each of the teams be at their best. You know, I don't want to see the
Yeah.
Browns be horrible. You know, that's no fun. I don't want to see, you know, I don't want to see Cincinnati be bad either. I definitely don't want
Yeah.
to see the Steelers play poorly. So I mean, I want to see hard fought games, and I think that, you know, this Browns Ravens game is, you know, it's going to be a hard fought game regardless of who wins. And you know, I think that you know, they're not going to sleep on this game. They're definitely going to respect the Browns. Have to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since they've had a game that meant this much, surely. You know, for the Browns, 20 years since they've had a game that meant this much. And it's really interesting with the way that, I mean, okay, so, you know, Ravens are 7-5, Browns are 9-3. It's almost a must win for the Ravens, which kind of scares me a little bit because you know the desperation, like the Ravens in a must win game, like, you know, like that's scary, right? Like that's a whole different animal that I don't know if the Browns, you know, physically they are going to have to be ready for that. It should be a really interesting game and it'll be a lot of fun for sure. Obviously, we know the Ravens are excellent on defense, right? Always terrific. How do you see them trying to stop the Browns' run game? Obviously, the Browns have a terrific run game too. They're two-headed monster, Chubb and Hunt. What do you think their approach will be as far as against the Browns' run or defensively? What do you think their approach will be?
I think one thing that concerns me if I'm the Ravens is just, you know, I think with having Calais Campbell banged up and not knowing if he'll play, I think it'll be harder to stop that Browns run rushing offense. I think with Nick Chubb's outstanding. I mean, there's nothing else that I can say about the guy. Like he. I mean, it doesn't like to me. He's the best back in the NFL. You know, I think that Nick Chubb is complete. He does everything the right way. If you need him to make chips in the passing game on the block and pass pro, I mean, God gets it done.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so I think they have to figure out how they can take Nick Chubb out of the game because they never can every time they play against him. And then if you have Calais Campbell out, you know, now you're left with, you know, Brandon Williams. And I mean, it's great to have Brandon Williams and Derek Wolf, you know, finally back. But I think if you know, let's say one of those other guys gets banged up, you know, it'll be extremely hard to stop that rush offense. I think passing wise, you know, when it comes to the Ravens secondary, I think that's their biggest strength. You know, if Jimmy Smith
yeah,
plays and you have Marcus Peters and of course Marlon Humphrey, you know, Marlon Humphrey has shown me a lot this season. You know, and it's like his consistency is something that you know, you would hope that. To me, I think the Ravens they have to. It's a great thing that they locked him up because you know, to me, I would put him on the best receiver. I would have him trail Jarvis Landry, but the Ravens trust Marcus Peters as well, and you know, I don't think the fans have the same kind of trust for Marcus Peters as they do for Marlon Humphrey. Because
yeah,
Marcus Peters, when he's great, he's great. But he makes a lot of plays where he tries to freelance. Um, and you know that kind of works on some of the less talented receivers, but the best guys in the league, you know, they're gonna eat you alive. Um, and sometimes he can get with the best. I think when he's at his best, he can play against those top receivers. But I think that, when he's at his worst, sometimes he makes, the slot guy who, is the fourth or fifth receiver look like the second coming of Wes Welker. So I think he needs to, step up in this game for sure. I think he's great. Like I said, I think Marcus Peters, his ceiling is extremely high. He has a great ceiling, but his ability to, not let the, small plays kill him. I think that's where the Ravens are going to have to try to clean that up at.
Yeah, definitely. And everything starts off the play action for the Browns. It's almost like, okay, so they took the approach, and this is kind of how I think about the game. And tell me what you think about this. But like, the Browns' approach to the Tennessee game, or at least the way that I thought about it going in, was like, okay, either team jumps out to a lead, they're at such an advantage because they depend so much on the run, even to pass. And I think Baltimore is the same way, right? Like, even their pass is kind of predicated on their run being there first, right? So the play action and what's going to open up because you're worried about the run. Same thing with the Browns. Their pass game is there after the run is there, right? So if you're coming up to Tennessee loaded up for the run, and the Browns were able to throw it on them because of that, right? And so in those offenses like that, like the Ravens, Tennessee's, the Browns, are at their best when the game is even or you're ahead. But if you're behind, you're really putting them behind the eight ball. Like, to ask Baker to bring a team from behind with just straight drop back in the pocket and throw it is tough, right? Same thing with Lamar, asking him to drop back and throw it a bunch of times. I think that's tough. That's what you want to do if you're the Browns. I think that's what you want to do if you're the Ravens. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I will say one thing about the Ravens and the Browns too. I think that, one thing that I saw in the first game that the Ravens did was that they did go to those drop back passes earlier on in the game because the run was getting stuffed every 2 seconds. The Browns were able to crush the run. But as soon as the Ravens kind of retooled in that second quarter, that's when, everything kind of broke loose where the Ravens were like, you know what? We could actually drop back and pass. And another thing that they did too a couple weeks ago was that the Ravens actually went under center a little bit more. And I think that if they want to win some games, I think, to me, Lamar, I think Lamar, we have to remember when he was at Louisville, he was under center quite a bit. I think that a lot of people, they want to call Lamar just a running back, or they want to say that he can't read defenses that well or whatever. He was a guy that was under center at Louisville, and that was that offense was also one of the harder offenses to run in college football because it was more of a pro style offense. And I think that when the Ravens show more looks instead of, going from the shotgun or going from the pistol all the time, and mostly the pistol, I think that opens up that passing game, even on short passes. Like, against the Titans, Des Bryant was left open for little 7-yard gains every time they were playing, coverage maybe 10, 12 yards off of him. So I think, you can make that happen with other guys, maybe not Des Bryant. Maybe you're throwing a Willie Snead a little bit more, put him in the slot. Mark Andrews is another guy that I think, teams are going to try to key in on Mark Andrews, but somehow he slips away every time. I think that, and that's the same thing I think that the Browns could try to do as well. I think it's going to be a little bit harder for them just because of the cornerbacks that the Ravens have. But
certainly,
in terms of getting that middle open with Cooper and also Njoku, I know Njoku hasn't been that great this season, but for some reason, every time he plays against the Ravens, he shows out. So to me, I'm like, if I'm the Ravens, you have to make sure that, your safeties are on their P's and Q's against Hooper and Njoku. And then especially Mark, I mean, when it comes to the middle linebackers, I think LJ Ford, he's up for the challenge. But Patrick Queen has been, he's been hit or miss this season. And I know he's a rookie. And he has some of the best plays that I've seen from a rookie linebacker, but then he turns around and has some of the worst plays that I've seen from a rookie linebacker. So, I think
I
that, yeah,
I was shocked. Okay, so you're talking about Patrick Queen. I was shocked by this, right? So, like, I've seen him play, and he seems like he's always around the ball, right? And he's always making plays and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I haven't watched enough of the Ravens to really be able to say. But from the games I have seen, I've been like, yeah, Patrick Queen's pretty good. And then I heard on just a local show around here, they were talking about his PFF score, right? His Pro Football Focus score is like the lowest of it. It's like 28 or something like that, like the worst of anybody in the NFL. And I was like, seriously? Like, I just, that just didn't make any sense to me, high draft pick, whatever. But you've seen him all year. So, you said he's hit or miss, right?
right. And I don't think it's funny because his PFF rating, I think his bad plays are so bad that it brings everything else down. It's like,
Yeah.
he'll have a play where he gets like, it's almost like when you're in class in college and you have one bad test grade that brings your entire grade down, and he'll get like all A's. And then that one or two plays that just kills the Ravens, that kills his PFF grade. So I think, it's a little bit skewed. Like, I think the median will be a little bit better. Like, I think he'd be sitting in the 60s or even below 70s had he not made those horrible plays at times. But I think that he's so talented, though. I think that, it's just the beginning for him. We have to also remember in 1996, Ray Lewis wasn't Ray Lewis yet. So, and I'm not saying Patrick Queen is Ray Lewis, but we also got to give rookie middle linebackers, especially in today's NFL, especially with, coverage, I think it's so hard to guard some of these guys. So I think he's learning, he's getting better, and I think as time goes on, he'll show that he is worth, that first round pick that they used on him.
Certainly, it takes time for sure, definitely, and I have no doubt that he'll be a stud. I just thought it was funny that I was like, "What 28?" I was shocked by that. It is crazy. So if you're a Ravens fan, which I'm assuming you are a Ravens fan, you report on the Ravens, right, for the Baltimore Sun. His name is Kyle Andrews. He's kind enough to join us here on All Eyes on Cleveland Live tonight. Just a couple more questions here for you, Kyle. You've been fantastic. What's your biggest concern coming into the game? Is it Nick Chubb, kind of like you said before? What's your biggest fear?
Nick Chubb. It's definitely Nick Chubb, and I think 1 through 5. My if I'm the Ravens, my biggest concern 1 through 5 is Nick Chubb, and then number 6 is Baker Mayfield play action passing. Because I think Baker, when Nick Chubb starts going, and then somebody starts falling asleep in secondary, then Baker knows how to exploit that. And it was something funny that someone mentioned on local radio here in Baltimore, and it was that the fact that they said Baker Mayfield, for some odd reason, seems to have figured out how to move his arm with his eyes and his legs and put it all together. And I can see that every time I watch him now. It just looks like, Baker, he's going through his progressions. He's going bam, bam, bam. And then he's like, you know what? I'll take the check down to Nick Chubb, or I'll take the check down to Kareem Hunt, or I'll get Njoku in the flats. And it's just like he's playing football. I mean, he's playing a lot smarter football to me. I think we have to give Baker Mayfield his credit on that aspect. But I think, you have to worry about Nick Chubb the absolute most. Nick Chubb is going to get his carries. We all know that Kareem Hunt's going to get his carries as well to supplement Nick Chubb. And if the Ravens can't stop the run, they won't win this game. And it's as simple as that. But if they can stop the run, and you force Baker to throw a little bit more without the running game, because some guy, I don't know what it is, but some guys they can fake, they can straight up throw off a play action all the time, and then not even have a great running game and make it work. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning would always come to mind when I think about that, because they might have had Tom Brady might have had like one or two great seasons where I guess where they had a running game. Same thing with Peyton, with Edgerrin James back in the day. But those are the only guys, and maybe Aaron Rodgers. Those are the only guys I can think of, and I guess Patrick Mahomes too, where they can
Yeah.
make a play action work without having a great running game. So I think if you take away a run game from Baker Mayfield, then the Ravens could, pin their ears back and then just start sending blitzes at him and getting exotic with blitzes. And then also another thing that I think that, is going to be a pretty big help is then having Matt Judon back.
Yep.
You have Matt Judon back off of the COVID list. Like everyone talked about, Willie Snead being back, and I think that's great. But Matthew Judon is one of the backbones of the Ravens defense. For better or for worse, I think Matt Judon has like sometimes you'll see him and he'll have like 3-4 good plays in a row, and then he'll rough the passer. But I think his hustle is something that always keeps the Ravens in games, even when they're down, because he plays at 100 miles an hour. Patrick Queen, you can see who he's learned it from. Like a lot of guys on the Ravens do that. They play at 100 miles an hour. It's not as back in the day with Brian Billick, it was more controlled chaos. Now it's just chaos. and so Matt Judon's going to bring some chaos, I think, to that Browns offensive line when he goes after Baker. I think Yannick Ngakoue, he's waiting in the wings too. You still have him. I think that he's been pretty quiet ever since the Ravens traded for him, but I think he's still
I was
trying
going
to
to
find
ask you
his
about
way.
that. Yeah. I was going to ask you about Ngakoue because I was like wanting the Browns to try to get him even before the season when he was having the contract issues with Jacksonville. And then I was like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. The Ravens got Ngakoue because like he just looks like an absolute beast, but he's been quiet, hasn't he?
Yeah. And I think we have to keep in mind too that a lot of times when Yannick Ngakoue has been quiet this season, I think a lot of times, they're double teaming him. And they're getting guys that chip off on him. And, not everyone's Aaron Donald when they can take on 3-4 different guys at once. It just, we don't have guys like that in the NFL much. It's not a bunch of Reggie Whites and Dwight Freeneys and those kind of guys walking around these days. So I think that, people have to keep in mind that with him getting double teamed, I think Matthew Judon in that case has stepped up. Like earlier on in the season, everyone in Baltimore was talking about how Matt Judon hadn't stepped up all season. Now when Yannick Ngakoue comes in, Matt Judon starts playing well. I'm like, I wonder why. Maybe you should keep both of them.
Yeah.
Hopefully. If I'm the Ravens, I'm trying to keep, maybe Matt Judon gets priced out now, but I think that they have to have two guys like that. Not only that, but you also have Pernell McPhee and Tyus Bowser. And Tyus Bowser is also in a contract year. And guess what? He played well the entire season, but his snap count has gone down ever since Ngakoue has gotten there. So I think you have to, the Ravens have to mix it up defensively. Like they can't just throw. I think they have to go more towards those NASCAR packages that they used to use back in when Zadarius Smith was there, where you put an outside linebacker and nose tackle essentially, and just have him pass rush. But then you also have 3-4 other outside linebackers in there, and you'd have them go after the quarterback. And I think that's something that they've kind of strayed away from because they don't have that kind of personnel. Zadarius Smith was a freak. He still is a freak, and the fact that they lost him. That hurt them quite a bit over the years. I think, you don't have a guy. It's not many guys that can do the things that he did. He was able to play inside, and I think, ironically enough, Zadarius Smith was Pernell McPhee's replacement, and if Pernell McPhee comes back to the Ravens, replaces Zadarius Smith. So, I think that pass rush, they've been missing a guy like that can play multiple positions, even play the defensive line. Because the Ravens they have this weird defense where it is a base 3-4 defense, but they use a lot of different other formations where they use 4 down linemen, or they use,
Certainly.
or they even get to a 4-2-5 defense in a nickel, or they do multiple other things. They go into dime coverage. They go into, they run so many different coverages out of different sets. It's insane. So I think that the
They do.
Ravens, they have to, they if they want to win this game, I think you have to, stop that run first, and then also send exotic blitzes at Baker Mayfield. So that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, certainly. The Baltimore's defense is one of the most complex in the league. Certainly, when it comes to the blitzes they run and the different looks that they're going to show you, as they're going to try to confuse Baker Mayfield, certainly, and give him all kinds of different looks. And I'm sure they'll be ready to do that. It should be an awesome game. I can't wait. I wish it was. I wish it was tomorrow. You know what I mean? I just honestly, Browns fans are so psyched. We can't wait for this game. As far as the playoff picture goes, you guys have this game and then 3 layups pretty much right down the stretch, or not very good contender. I don't have the list in front of me now. I know they're not very good. The last 3 games are very winnable for the Ravens. Do you think that 10-6 can get you in the AFC this year? Like, if they lost this game, do you think if they win out, they can still get in?
I think if they lost the game, they could get in, but it'll be a lot tougher. So I think that
They'll
they
need
have
some help,
to.
probably.
Oh yeah, I think that to me, the Titans are going to get in. I think the Browns will get in for sure. And then that third last wild card spot now, since we have 7 teams instead of the original 6, I think it's going to be a dog fight for that last spot. And I think the Raiders and the Ravens are the 2 biggest contenders to that spot.
Yeah.
I think the Ravens are a better team than the Raiders, of course, but I also think that the Raiders have pretty big. I mean, their booms are huge, but then their busts are pretty big too. So
yeah,
that's the problem with them. So and plus they haven't been there before. This is a team that just doesn't have the same kind of consistency and the track record that the Ravens have. So I think that the Ravens, if they do end up with that 10-6 record, I think they could still get in, because I think the Raiders will somehow have egg on their face at the end of all of this, because that's just what the Raiders do. And it's not necessarily that this Raiders team is a bad team. I think they're actually way better coach than they used to be. I mean, now John Gruden has kind of got these guys in a better situation. And I think Darren Waller, also a former Raven, he's been outstanding himself. So,
Yes.
I think that the Ravens are going to have to win. They have to win at least against the Browns to put pressure on all their teams that are fighting for that last spot. So we'll see. I think that, out of those last final teams, I think the Ravens are they're the best team out of those teams. But, they're going to have to step up and beat the Browns. Like that. It's just as simple as that. If they want to make the playoffs, because a couple weeks ago, I was saying, I didn't think that they were a playoff team. But, anything could happen in this league. We saw what the Browns did to the Titans. They beat them senseless after the Titans beat the Ravens senseless on a regular basis. So we don't know how, teams match up. Maybe other teams match up better. But I think that, Ravens, to me, they're the best out of those last teams in that last wild card spot.
Yeah, I would think so too. I think they could probably find a way to get in, even if they do lose, but it'll be close. There's when you really look at it, a lot of teams down the stretch that are in this AFC wildcard end up playing each other at some point. So there's some automatic losses in there. So some of these teams are gonna have a tough time getting to 10 wins. But so I think the Ravens could probably get in either way, but it's certainly a huge game if they do want to get in. I think that's why I said it's scary that, when you think about the Ravens playing with desperation or with that must-win kind of approach, which I'm sure they're going to have Monday night, that's a whole other animal that I don't know, if the Browns are ready for yet. But certainly, my keys to the game are going to be the same as they were last week. Can they match the Ravens' physicality, right? Can they match that level of physical play? And can Joe Woods find a way to slow down the run? And those are the main two things for me. So, it'll be a good one. You got a prediction for me?
Yeah, I do. So I know, like I said earlier, I think it could go either way. I think it comes down to a field goal. And Ravens have Justin Tucker, so I think it's a 27-24 game. Ravens win. But I could see it going either way. I don't think I'm married to any idea in particular of what the outcome will be. One day I'm thinking, oh yeah, the Browns, they've got this, and then another day I'm like, oh yeah, Ravens have got it. But I think with all those guys that have come back for the Ravens, and I think that the offensive line has started to gel a little bit, I think that the Ravens right now, to me, I think that they get this game.
Well, we will see, certainly. I appreciate your time tonight. You were fantastic. Kyle Andrews, the Baltimore Sun Mobtown Blitz podcast, which I'm sure you can find where all popular podcasts are available. Anything else you want to shout out here? Any of your work?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I actually wanted to shout out my co-hosts as well. So Vasilios Nicolau, he's with WBAL TV in Baltimore. Then you also have Anthony Barkley, who is my co-host. Vasilios is our producer. And then Gabrielle DePaulo is with 105.7. She's also another co-host of mine on Mobtown Blitz. So, if you can look up their stuff as well. I can't really recall what their Twitter handles are, but if you follow Mobtown Blitz, you can find their Twitter handles. So Mobtown at Mobtown Pod, that's the Twitter for Mobtown Blitz, and then my Twitter is Kyle J Andrews _. So you guys can follow us on that.
I thought I found you. I must have put the wrong Kyle Andrews into my preview suite. I thought it was like Kyle Andrews BS Baltimore Sun
Media Group. Yeah, that's actually my other Twitter.
Okay. All right.
I actually merged the two accounts, or I tried to.
All right, so I got one of them in there. I got one of them on there. So go ahead and shout out. What's your Twitter handle again?
Yep, it's Kyle J Andrews _.
There you go. There it is. Go out and follow Kyle on Twitter and check out the work that he does for the Baltimore Sun. And you can listen to Mobtown Blitz podcast, where all popular podcasts are found. Thank you so much, Kyle. You're fantastic. It'll be a great game. I'm sure we'll touch base afterwards. And maybe if we meet up in the playoffs, we can certainly talk again then. All right, man?
That'd be great.
All right. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate you.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
That was Kyle J. Andrews of the Baltimore Sun and Mobtown Blitz podcast. Mikey, get that line out of the middle of the screen, please. Thank you, Mikey. Mikey on the ones and twos tonight. Doing a great job as always. My name is Brad Ward. You're listening to All Eyes on Cleveland. The podcast can be found where all popular podcasts are found, and certainly the simulcast going out to Facebook Live, Periscope, and YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube or watching on the playback on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the little bell down at the bottom there so that it can remind you every time we're putting out content for you. As you can follow along. We'll have some big news here in the coming week about the show. I don't know, maybe week. I think I can probably tell you guys, not next week, maybe the week after, but some big news about the show coming, and I'm thrilled about it. But I'm even more thrilled about this game on Sunday as the Browns and the Ravens. We talked the last show earlier this week about the flex to Sunday Night Football with the Giants the week after. So the Browns going primetime back to back. I mentioned my keys to this game here. Certainly they are the same. They are the same as Tennessee. It's the same thing. Match their physicality, and can Joe Woods find a way to stop the run? He came out very with a great approach against Tennessee. I would be surprised if he didn't come out with a similar approach. Certainly different. You're going to play the read option that Baltimore runs. You're going to play that differently, and there's going to be some different rules for guys in there as far as the way they play that. But that 5-man front, I think, is a great approach. Not knowing if we'll have Denzel Ward for the game is huge. I really, really hope that, obviously, that he is available. I think that as long as if you can see him get work on Saturday because of the weird week because of Monday Night Football. So Saturday, if he can get some work, I think that that would be really big, and then he could play probably on Monday night. We'll see what happens with that, but he's day to day at this point. And then the other kind of concerning thing that I saw in the injury report today is Hoop. Hoop missed today, did not participate, and it didn't say that it was not injury related, so I'm not sure what the update on Hooper is as far as for him for the game on Monday Night Football. So keep your eyes peeled for that news as it is December the 11th, a Friday night here as we get ready for a huge football weekend ahead of us here in mid-December. Mid-December, the Browns playing meaningful football is something new for a lot of us, and is to certainly be enjoyed. I've got a couple more things here for you tonight. Let's see here. I've got a video I want to show before we get up and out of here. And this video makes me laugh and smile every time I watch it. It is truly a gem of a video, and it should be watched and enjoyed by all Browns fans. So I'm going to go ahead and try to bring this up here. Okay, we've got the Twitter. All right, nope, that's not it. Let's take this down. All right, here we go. We're gonna expand this here, and we're gonna stop it first. All right. So this video, before I get to it here, this video is to be enjoyed by all Browns fans, and it is courtesy of, and I must say this, courtesy of at Angry Browns Fans is the creator of this video, but it is one that he put out after the Week 8 victory over the Bengals, but is now even more important and pertinent and absolutely hilarious. As you've got to watch it and enjoy it, and I watch it and enjoy it very often. Have reposted it several times on Twitter, so it's here, and you need to see it. So I'm going to play it now. Enjoy it thoroughly. It's a great one for Browns fans. And with that, we'll watch this and then have a couple thoughts, and we'll get you up and out of here. Thank you for listening to All Eyes on Cleveland. Make sure you hit the subscribe button at the bottom, and feel free to interact in the comment section if you would like. Let's do this. Let's turn this up a little bit here. An absolute gem, worth the price of admission every time. Truly fantastic work via Angry Browns fans. I can't stop watching it. I can't stop watching it. Monday Night Football. Browns are 8th in the league now in the run, middle of the pack in the pass. The linebacker play is going to be huge. Mark Andrews returning is going to be absolutely huge. Browns have always struggled for years now, including this year, to stop Mark Andrews and stop the tight end play. That'll be fantastic. Get fired up about it. It's a lot of fun. This is going to be a blast down the stretch here. Browns should get in the playoffs. Either way, they should be at 11 wins or get there to 11 wins one way or another. They can do even better, too. I think they have a great chance to win this game the way that they played against Tennessee. I'd like to see that carry over. And there's just something about this team. There's something about the way they're carrying themselves right now, the way they're coached by Coach Stefanski. I think it'll be great. All Eyes on Cleveland is the name of the show. You can listen to it where all popular podcasts are found, and certainly you can watch it now on YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook Live. I hope you enjoyed the interview tonight, and we will be back next week with a couple more shows and some big news about our show coming in the future. Once again, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to let you know when we're coming out with brand new content. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of All Eyes on Cleveland. But let's do it one more time before we get out of here. Let's do this one more time. Fantastic stuff via Angry Browns fans. Hope you enjoyed the show.
You start getting excited, motherfucker! We gotta go! You start getting excited, motherfucker! We gotta go!
You start getting excited. Monday Night Football. Browns. Ravens. Thanks to Mikey on the ones and twos. My name is Brad Ward. This has been All Eyes on Cleveland. We are out.